Hello, everybody. Welcome to another broadcast of Chit Chat Cafe on the Artistfirst World Radio Network. For more information about the show and to listen to past shows for free, please visit artistfirst.com/chitchat.htm. And now here are your hosts of Chit Chat Cafe, Lisa and Betty Ann.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Chit Chat Cafe. We're airing live from Artistfirst World Radio. Betty Ann, hey, we're doing our show early this week.
Yeah, we are. This is a new experience for us. We're usually settled. It's later, but this is it's nice to do something for a change that's different. Yeah,
normally we air, for those listening that don't know us, we usually air on Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Time.
Coming up next, we have a special segment that we recorded earlier today with the fabulous Dr. Oz. Our guest tonight is a thoracic surgeon, an author, and is seen every day on TV focusing on medical and personal health issues. The Chit Chat Cafe is honored to welcome Dr. Mehmet Oz. Hi, Dr. Oz.
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
We are so honored. So we were just told that you were nominated for 3 Daytime Emmys. Congratulations.
Well, you're very kind. It's, we work hard at the show. We try to do the best program we can for everybody, but it's always an honor when your peers respect what you've crafted. So I'm very proud of the whole team.
Well, that is just amazing, amazing. And you are amazing.
Well, thank you.
And you're welcome. We had an opportunity to speak to your daughter a couple months ago, Daphne, and she was so wonderful to speak to. And we wanted to offer congratulations that you're a grandfather now.
It was one of the best feelings in the world. All the grandparents have been telling me this all along, but I didn't realize it. But when you actually see the joy in your child, when they experience what you got to experience when they were born, you're paying it forward. It's fantastic.
That's awesome. Were you at the birth of your grandchild?
They didn't want me at the birth. I was banned. They wanted to have a regular old-fashioned delivery without a father. There was a doctor in the room, which I think was wise. And then, but I was the first one to see her. I ran over there immediately, and after she came out, it was good.
Oh, that's wonderful, wonderful. Well, we were looking at some of the topics that you have on your show this week, and Lisa and I are former NFL cheerleaders. So, and we're not older, but we're older than some of our younger ladies. We will not disclose what era we cheered in. But we are really interested about the Dr. Oz May diet. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So, we have had great success this season talking about diet programs, and we decided to do something very interesting. I've made about 800 shows so far. We've been on the air for just finishing our 5th year, and so I took the best diet ideas I'd heard of, and I took them because my producers were actually using them. So this is the filter. What is it that we have talked about that my own team is using? These Emmy award-winning people who are smart and intelligent. And we took their ideas, put them together, and created this wonderful diet program. We've had millions of people download the diet. It's free. It's based on some straightforward principles. I'll give you an example. So some of them are a little surprising. Like, I don't want people drinking skim milk or using skim dairy because it doesn't work. You take the fat out of milk, what's left? Sugar. Instead, you want to eat real fat, 2% or whole fat dairy. And you do want the dairy because it has fats in it called CLAs that actually let your fat that's in your body relax and let go of their fat stores. So those are the kinds of tips that we give you. We, in addition, are pretty specific about the fact we want a lot of protein in the morning, 20 grams ideally of protein for breakfast. It can be in the form of an omelet or a protein shake or whatever you're going to get, but you need to have the protein because we know protein both satiates you but also doesn't get deposited on your thighs as fat. So we have lots of examples like that we pull together to both detox you but also get to your playing weight, in your case your cheerleader playing weight, which is what most of us seek.
Well, we are definitely going to have to download the diet because that's something that Lisa and I are always talking about. How are we going to lose weight? How are we going to slim down our belly. Even though it's funny because we have a group of over 300 women in our alumni, it never changes. It doesn't matter what age group. We always have those same thoughts, and we're always trying to stay slim and look nice. And
well, amazingly, to interrupt you, on the show, I could probably talk about weight loss every single day, and people will be happy. It comes up so often, but I don't think it's the right thing for folks because weight's just an example of things that we do wrong in our bodies that everyone else can see, including us. But there are many other things we do inaccurately. For example, we're doing a show it's called the allergy diet. And it's not about weight loss. It's about realizing that a lot of us have allergies to things like pollen that we never had problems with before. And the reason for that oftentimes is you have subtle allergies in your intestinal system that may be caused by gluten or by dairy or something else. And the autoimmune response, the civil war that takes place in your body as a reaction to that is problematic because it makes you hypersensitive to anything else in the world. So in this season, for example, we're going to have a very bad allergy season because of the winter, and all this pollen starting to propagate now. People will start to have overreactions if they'd had a little ginger, local honey, some of these spices, hugely effective, omega-3s, in reducing the body's overreactivity. And a lot of the malaise we feel and the weight gain is because our bodies are in an inflamed situation. We just didn't realize it.
That is such an amazing thought, that it really is more like that. And for myself, I am allergic to everything. I have a lot of problems with all kinds of foods. So that's something I'm really interested in, really, really interested in.
But those topics tend to be the ones we spend the most time on the show. And I love having real conversations with real people. So we do bring celebrities on, as you know, but usually I want to hear how they dealt with their allergies, how they lose the weight. And they have different insights. I was just talking to Diane Keaton for a segment yesterday, and this is a woman who's, she's a very attractive woman. She's been on Most Beautiful lists, but she really never thought of herself. She said she looked like Amelia Earhart. It wasn't really she never thought of herself as a pretty person. And when she starts talking about the bulimia that she suffered from, and she's never talked about it before, it was riveting for me to see a very intelligent, highly functional woman cop to the reality that she was an addict. Because many of us are in ways we don't appreciate. It takes a lifetime to figure it out.
Wow. That's really something. And she's so beautiful.
She is.
I just love her. She's gorgeous.
And the hats she wears were all defense mechanisms. Her building a cage up around herself to protect herself. And of course, we all do this in our lives, right? We build these walls to protect ourselves, but they do become cages after a while. You can't get around them.
Yeah, exactly.
Sticking to the diet subject, but off allergies for a minute. Are you on the philosophy of everything in moderation? Do you agree with that?
I think you can get away with everything in moderation. There's some things that you should take in more than moderately, and other things would be nice if you're uncommonly touched them. But the worst thing to do in the world is deprive yourself of something that you love, because then you're going to really desire it and crave it. And I give people tips. We have a show coming up where we're talking about 5-HTP, which helps people with mood problems and anxiety who can't sleep. It also helps you if you're craving food you shouldn't eat. But the best way to deal with the craving is to give into it a tiny bit. But to take the one bite. 2 bites, because the first bite tastes better than anything else. Second bite's half as good as the first bite. By the time it's the third bite, it's hedonism. And I think so many of us, instead of washing that taste out of our mouth, just keep going, and then we beat ourselves up about it. And we have this new magazine that we just launched called The Good Life that you may have heard sold out this first issue. But the second issue just came down stands, and we call it The Good Life because it's about the life you really want. It's what really matters to you. And I always write the first and last article about personal things that I'm concerned about, and the last article is all about this issue of forgiveness. How do you give yourself a little room and then deal with the fact that we're all flawed and we're going to make mistakes, and don't compound it by making additional mistakes on top of that. Otherwise, you end up with much more significant problems you ever would have had to begin with.
Wow. Well, Dr. Ives, Lisa and I are just, we are beyond thrilled to have a chance to speak with you. And there's so many things that we would love to ask you about. But I did see yesterday on your show that you were talking about taking care of your skin so that you don't get wrinkles, and Dr. Brandt was on. Can you give us a couple tips?
Well, one of the great tips was new ways of exfoliating. So you want to gently remind the skin that you want to change out the old beat-up collagen for the brand-new, strong, burly stuff that makes your skin tauter and gives it the bounciness that you desire. And I asked him, he's world famous at this, to give us practical tips for the exfoliants. There's one that I just talked about recently, even independent of him, of cinnamon with honey, because it gives a good combination of an emulsifier. It's sticky, it soaks in water to your skin, but tauts it up at the same time as it exfoliates it. And those are the kinds of tips I love, because you have all the tools you need in your kitchen. And so without spending more money, you can make yourself look more beautiful. I need to excuse myself. I've got to go take care of patients because my clinical day, taking care of real people today. But I really appreciate spending time with both of you.
Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Oz. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we really appreciate it. And have a good day.
Stay well.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Now back to Chit Chat Cafe with Lisa and Betty Ann.
We have a great guest tonight. Her name is Amy Newmark. She's a publisher and co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul, the Multitasking Mom's Survival Guide. Hi, Amy.
Hi.
Well, thank you for joining us tonight. Are you calling from the Northeast?
Yeah, I'm in Greenwich, Connecticut, and it's freezing
Very nice
right
area. I
now.
love it up there. Beautiful.
Yeah, I like it too.
Are you having the terrible rain as the rest of us are on the East Coast?
I am, and I just gave my daughter's dog back to her, and I missed the dog, but I'm happy actually that I gave the dog back just before this rain started because I'm glad I'm not walking the dog in this rain.
Ugh, I know. That's the worst. And I've seen people doing that. They have a raincoat on. They have their umbrella. But, with this kind of rain, it's impossible to stay dry. It's impossible. And the poor dogs, they get soaked.
Well, my dogs, I just let them out after they ate dinner, and they came right back in. They didn't do their business.
Oh, yeah. My daughter's dog, when we had the snow a couple of years ago, that dog managed to hold it in for 36 hours.
Oh, that's amazing. Unbelievable. That's just unbelievable. So you have a book. You are the publisher and co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul, the Multitasking Mom's Survival Guide. Tell us about that.
So I made this. I've made about 100 books in the last 6 years because I became the publisher of Chicken Soup for the Soul 6 years ago, and I always have a ton of ideas, and so we put out about a book a month now, and in fact we have one that we just put out on April 22nd about Alzheimer's, and it's been a huge bestseller. I'm completely shocked, but also very happy that obviously I did something that people really needed. But anyway, this book, Chicken Soup for the Soul, The Multitasking Mom's Survival Guide, is the book I wish I had had back when I was raising my children, who are now in their 20s, because it contains so much great advice from so many moms who, moms, we love to share advice with each other, and so this is everybody's best stories, best advice. You got stories from 100 different people, all compiled in this one book, and I think it's going to be a lot of moms' favorite gift for Mother's Day, and one that they'll keep turning to over the years because you have stories about babies and toddlers and then children and preteens and teens and up to college age and beyond. And so there are stories for every stage of motherhood that you're going through.
Aww.
I loved putting this book together.
It might be interesting to hear the stories, because everyone, depending on what stage of life they're in with their children, and you think back and you go, wow, that's how I felt, or that's, something that I needed help with. Of course, you might be in a different stage now. So it must have been really interesting to hear all of the stories.
It was. And what happened for me was that as I was reading the stories, I was remembering all the different phases that I went through. And it was actually reminding me of some of my best tips and the best advice that I had to share with people. So I ended up writing 5 stories for the book myself, which I never do. I never write that many for a book myself. But these were different tips that I had passed on to friends over the years, and they had come back to me and said, oh, my gosh, that helped me so much. And so I thought, well, I'll just put them all in this book because really I want this book to represent the best advice that each of these moms writing has to offer. And I got a lot of great ideas, and when my kids start to have kids, I'm definitely going to have them go through this book and utilize some of this great advice. And these are all things that are easy to do. And I think it will be very supportive for moms because sometimes you do feel a little alone. You're the head of your household, basically. You're in charge of everything, right? And even if you're working, you're still in charge of everything at home. And sometimes it can be pretty lonely at the top, right? And so this book, you get to hear what other moms are saying. And it's funny, people will use Chicken Soup for the Soul as their confidant, and they'll tell stories in our books that they haven't even told to their own friends and family. We become the first confidants to get their best advice or their secret stories, their disaster stories. I mean, there's some really funny disaster stories in the book, as well as some great advice.
Well, can you share with us one of the really funny disaster stories?
Yeah, there's one that I love because I love words, and therefore this one really appealed to me. This mother, Patricia Lorenz, was, having one of those really, really bad days, and so she actually was having such a bad day with her 4 kids and their friends all over the house that she was making dinner and constantly being interrupted. So she actually tried to get her 2-year-old son to do something for her. So she said to him, go and push the button to turn off the TV. And he said, what? She said, push the TV off. And so the next thing she heard was this loud crash, sound of breaking glass, and she went running, and her 2-year-old proudly showed her how he had pushed off the TV right off the stand.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. These stories are always really funny in retrospect.
I mean, really, he did what she asked, and it's just, that's what he believed. She wanted, really. I mean, that is funny. That is funny.
Kids are so literal. I remember when I told my son one time we were going to the bank, and I told him, we're going to go park underground. And then there was this silence, and then he goes, will there be worms?
Oh.
Kids really are so literal.
That's funny. I
didn't put that in the book.
I have one funny one because I laugh about this all the time with my husband. My daughter, she's in college, I asked her to pick up her toys, and she said, "I can't. My hands are too little."
That's really sweet. And, boy, she should be a lawyer. She's got the excuses ready.
She was so ready. She drew all over the wall with marker and did all kinds of artwork. And I said, "What did you do?" She said, "I didn't do it. Marker did it."
Oh,
she was
yeah.
always doing stuff like that. So I love hearing stories like with the worms. That's hilarious. That's great.
Yeah,
What do you
it
think?
was.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, one of the things that I did with this book is besides having all of the specific advice, I tried to have some pervasive themes that I thought would be very, very helpful for the mothers. And so one of my themes is that it doesn't have to be perfect, because I think that's so important for mothers who are so hard on themselves. And you can't do everything 100%. But if you could do everything 90%, that's fabulous. I mean, that would be as much as anybody could ever expect. And so we have lots of stories where we remind people, your house doesn't have to be pristine. You're raising kids. You're not making semiconductors in a clean laboratory. You're raising children. It can be dirty. And you don't have to use your fine china and crystal when you have your family come for Christmas. They're not really going to remember if you used paper plates and plastic cups one year because that was all you could handle without going insane. So we have that theme throughout the book. And another theme that runs throughout the book is to take care of yourself. Don't forget your me time. And there was a story that really struck me, and so I had to put it in the book. There was this mom, and her name was Randy, and she had a bunch of kids, and a friend gave her a pendant, a necklace with a pendant on it, and it was an R. She thought, why did she give me an R? None of the kids' names start with R. And then she realized that she had forgotten that her own name started with an R. Like, she had so lost her identity in taking care of her children that she wasn't even understanding why her friend gave her a necklace with an R on it. And it was a real wake-up call to her that she needed to get back to taking care of herself as well. And so she joined a gym. She volunteered. She took a writing class. And obviously she's a very good writer because I took her story. But that was another theme I thought was really important because I still vividly remember what it felt like to be that crazed multitasking mom who was running a house, taking care of everything because my husband could only do so much, working part-time or full-time, depending where I was, and raising my kids, fixing things in the house, paying our taxes, paying the bills. Mm-hmm. I was the one who bought the presents, who wrote the thank you notes. You know how it is to be the mother and the wife. And so I was just remembering how crazed it was and just trying to pass on some of the best possible advice so that maybe those mothers who are coming up behind me could have a slightly better time doing it than I had.
From my personal experience, I feel like so many people revolve their lives around their kids when they're born. I think that you should fit the kids into your life. We always did, and we didn't neglect our kids, believe me. It's not like we were going out partying or anything. But we just kind of just integrated them into our lives, and it just ran very, very smoothly. You know what I mean? We were on a routine, and, if bedtime, if the normal bedtime was 8 o'clock and, we had company or we were out, then so what? We stay out until 9 o'clock. Big deal. But I know some people are so rigid with their schedules. I think it makes for neurotic kids sometimes. I mean, that are so.
I agree.
You need to.
I agree with you, and it makes for unhappy mothers. And if an unhappy mother is not going to be a good mother, a good mother should be happy.
For example, a couple years ago, we had my cousin and his wife over for Thanksgiving. Their child was just 2, and her bedtime was 8 o'clock. But we were just cleaning up dinner. It was 8 o'clock. The little girl was playing with my daughter. She was not in a bad mood. She was having a good time. The mother's, we have to leave. Before we even had the pies, before we even cut the pies, we had to rush everything, and she packed up the kid, and then they left. It's ridiculous.
Oh.
Let her stay.
Yeah, that is ridiculous.
Stay an extra hour. I mean, that kind of stuff.
One of the things that I said in the 5 pieces that I put in the book was, first of all, none of that stuff matters. And, I didn't even care what my kids wore or how they did their hair.
They
could get whatever kind of haircut they wanted. They could wear whatever clothes they wanted. I did not impose any clothing rules on my kids. And the funny thing is that my son, when all these other kids were wearing, the pants falling down and the boxer shorts showing and disgusting torn T-shirts and this and that, he, who had no rules at all, and could wear anything he wanted, was wearing a polo shirt and khakis to school.
Exactly, because you give them that freedom.
Well, yeah, and the other thing I did was I gave my kids a huge amount of responsibility early on because I wanted to show them respect. I mean, kids, when you're a kid, you have no control over anything. I mean, I remember early on, getting the kids in the car, hurry, we have to go. I get them in the car. And then finally, this little voice would say after we were driving for 10 minutes, where are we going? Because you don't even bother to give them the courtesy of telling them where you're going. And so I started giving them a lot of responsibility and treating them like they were more grown up, but about the stuff that didn't really matter. Because the stuff that mattered was you're not going to do drugs, you're going to do well in school, you're going to do sports, you're going to remain fit. Stuff that didn't matter was the clothing and whether they missed their bedtime once in a while,
right?
And exactly what they watched on TV. But you know what I did is I actually ended up imposing, I think, more control over them by letting them feel they were in control, because I did things like I made them something I called privilege coupons, so that instead of arguing over whether they could watch TV on a school night or whether they could stay up past their normal bedtime, I gave them at the beginning of each year a big sheaf of coupons, and maybe they got 12 coupons over the course of the year to stay up an hour past bedtime.
That's
They
cute.
got 12 coupons for watching TV on a school night. When they wanted one of those privileges, they just whipped out a coupon. No arguing at all. They ended up watching a lot less TV than they would have if we were always arguing about it. They got more sleep. Then the other thing I did was I gave them clothing budgets and debit cards, and they bought their own clothes. And if they lost something, that was their problem. And it was up to them to decide how important an article of clothing was, because they only had so much in their budget.
Now, you girls, I have a question for both of you. What do you feel was the most difficult phase of a child's life to raise as being a parent? What do you find? Would you find it as infants, toddlers, elementary, junior high, high school, college? What do you feel was the most difficult time as being a parent?
I have an answer. What I called the fearsome fours. We didn't have the terrible twos, but we had the fearsome fours.
That was yours. How about you, Betty Ann?
Well, let me see. I think it was more I think it might have been around 3 or 4, because, I'm thinking of an incident, and it was Michelle, the younger one. She liked to run all the time, chase things, chase butterflies. She would see something and she'd go after it. Maybe she was 3. And, she ran, and I was, trying to catch her, and she was heading towards the street. And, I saw a car coming, and I knew I wasn't going to get her in time because I couldn't catch her that fast, but she was fast. And I actually jumped in front of a car. The car stopped. But if I hadn't jumped in front of that car, that she would have gotten hit. I just instinctively, she was a runner. She would just run after things, and I was always chasing her. And Disney World, going to Disney World, it was like I needed a vacation after going to Disney World, because she was always on the hunt for autographs of the characters. You know how they have the different stations where the characters will be, and it's crowded there, and I was always chasing her, because she would just there's Aladdin. Oh, there's, and there we go, running. I didn't need to be on a diet back then, put it that way.
Yeah,
I can laugh about it now, but back then I just was exhausted. She was tough.
No, see, I think the hardest part is now, like high school converting into college. Because you want them to make the right choices, and you want them to become independent, and you want them to find a job when they get out of college, and not get on drugs, and maybe meet a nice person to marry. This is a little more stressful to me now than when they were babies. So I have a totally different perspective on it.
Maybe those of us who had a harder time when they were 3 and 4, somehow the teen years just didn't feel as bad because they were so tough when they were 3 and 4.
Really? I think it just got easier as it got along, and then once they got older, I can't complain. I don't have any complaints. I do think that they're making good decisions. I'm not worried about those things.
Well, mine are too, luckily.
Mm-hmm.
But I still worry. I don't know. I worry they're driving. I'm worried they're going to get mugged. Well, my son did get mugged. He lives in Baltimore. He did get mugged last year. That stuff worries me more than, at least when they were babies, I knew they were safely in bed. You know what I mean? They were always under my, watchful eye.
The driving is tough. My kids do not understand about the ditch. You know the ditch that they're in, that they went in the accident and they're bleeding out in the ditch?
Yes.
The ditch that every mother imagines.
Yes. Yep.
And my kids are like, where is this ditch? And I said, well, actually, it's right off Dingletown Road, which is very winding, and I told them exactly where the ditch was, and they think I'm insane. But now, of course, they're in their 20s. I'm a lot calmer about that. But I do remember the getting into college part was incredibly stressful. And this is funny. You know how I said I made the Multitasking Mom Survival Guide because I wished I had it? Well, Lisa, you might be interested. I also made a book called Teens Chicken Soup for the Soul, Teens Talk Getting into College, and I made that book right when my daughter, the second child, was going off to college.
Oh, I wish I had
that. Because it had been so stressful that I said, I'm going to make a book for everyone else. And so we do have that book. And it's very, very helpful because you read what everyone else has gone through and how it does work out eventually, no matter how horrible it is while you're going through it.
I know in my experience for myself, the transition for college was more difficult for me than, my daughters. The one that I call the runner, she was fiercely independent. She had to do everything her way. And she went to college. She did her own thing. She made her own decisions. She's traveled around the world. She's been to many places in the world. And all that, she made good decisions. And I really don't worry about her. She's just doing okay. She's doing really well. But it was more myself worried. I am a high anxiety person. I really am. I stress myself out. Well, like Lisa, like you do, about the driving and getting mugged. And
I'm my son, he's a waiter. Be careful when you leave. Don't get killed. Ma, cut it out. I'm not going to get killed.
You know what? You just keep doing that, Lisa, because your voice will be in the back of his head, and he'll do something a little safer because you keep harping on him.
You know what?
That's one of the things I learned. Keep harping on them.
You know what? As long as I say they can get mad at me, they cannot do what I say, but as long as I do what I have to do as a mother and say it and know I did the right thing, they make their own choices, right?
So how many times have you said stuff to your kids? This has happened to me dozens of times. I've said something, and they've told me I'm an idiot, and then a month later they'll say, well, I decided to do such and such. And I say, oh, what a good idea. And they're repeating my words right back to me. And then you know what I realized? That I do the same thing to my mother. Even though I'm 57 and she's 82, I still do it. I think it's just what kids do.
Well, I do tell whenever my daughters leave, and they're both living at home now because the one is getting ready to go to pharmacy college, but she's going to be commuting. I always tell them, be careful. Be careful when you're driving. I'll see that there's some kind of road problem, watch out for that road, because I just saw on the news that there was like, I say that, even though they seem to ignore me, but I bet you that you're right. They do hear it.
They do. And so our duty as mothers is just to take the flak for it and just forge ahead, giving them the unwanted advice, because if even 5% of it penetrates their brains, we've done something good. And that's our job as mothers, is to do that.
Exactly.
So what's your next project?
No, go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, so after the Multitasking Mom Survival Guide, we did this Alzheimer's book. And then, I don't know why, I seem to be in brain disease right now. The next book we're doing after this is about traumatic brain injuries, and we got a foreword from Lee Woodruff. And then we're going back to really fun books this summer. We're going to do a cat book and a dog book. And the other thing that's going on at Chicken Soup for the Soul, we're doing so many exciting things. We have a line of food out now, real food, soups and gravies and broths and pasta sauces, and they're really great. That's another thing I wish I had had when I was raising my kids. It would have made it a lot easier to get dinner on the table. So anyway, I'm having a lot of fun being in the food business as well as the book business. So we're having a lot of fun here at Chicken Soup for the Soul. We basically just make things that we wish other people had made for us. So now we're making them.
Oh, that's a good idea. Now, do you have any Chicken Soup for the Soul desserts?
No, we haven't done anything with desserts. Not yet. Maybe one day we will.
Let me ask you a
we
question
haven't
about
done
parenting,
it.
since we're talking about food. What do you think about people that cater to their kids every whim, like dinner? If they don't like what you make, would you make them something special, or would you just let them eat what you made?
They could eat what I made.
But
I remember being a kid. I mean, I'm not going to give them something they hate.
Of course.
But they didn't have to eat it. If they didn't like it, they didn't have to eat it. I would never force them to eat it. No, I wouldn't go make something else. But I also wouldn't perversely just make something someone disliked. Because I remember as a kid, I hated peas. Now I like peas. I mean, so you can give them another green vegetable instead of peas.
Right.
So I wouldn't go deliberately make them something they didn't like.
Right, of course.
But I don't know. I don't remember my kids having a lot of issues with food. And I do remember, like, I had a roommate freshman year of college, and her parents had never let her have any sweets at all.
Oh, that's
so
silly.
she went absolutely crazy over sweets and became hyperglycemic. She got really sick.
So that's we're talking something too strict. That's craziness.
Mm-hmm.
It ends up hurting
too
the kids
strict
in the
just
long
leads
run.
to rebellion, or very, very quiet resentment. But either way, I don't know. I always felt like I was strict enough, and my kids really behaved well and came out very, very well, and it was much lower stress that way for me to not be arguing about things all the time.
Exactly. Got to pick your battles.
Yeah. I was very serious about my important battles. You don't drive after drinking, and my kids were really good about that.
Yeah, mine
and
too.
you do your homework. You don't have to be an A student if you're not naturally an A student, but you work to your fullest potential. And you do your sports, and you fulfill your obligations. If you sign up for a sport, you stick with the sport.
Right.
Unless, of course, it's something ridiculous, like when my 4'10" daughter signed up for water polo and would have drowned. I let her out of that one.
How many children do you have?
So I have 2, and then my husband has 2, because we're a blended family. So we have 4 overall. They're all doing great, and they range in age from 25 to 35.
Oh, do you have any grandchildren?
No, actually, the first child of the 4 of them is getting married May 10th. My son is getting married. Yeah, in a week and a half. Yeah, he's getting married. And then my stepdaughter, she's getting married in September.
Oh,
and then the 2 others, so the oldest and the youngest, I think they have their special person picked out. So we'll just wait to see when that happens. But anyway, it's so much fun watching the grown children do things. Like my youngest is in med school, 1 more year and she'll be a doctor, which is amazing to me.
Yeah,
that my little daughter will be an MD, and my my son is a successful writer, have nothing to do with me. This is all him writing stuff that has nothing to do with Chicken Soup for the Soul. He had his first book come out when he was, 24. And then my stepchildren are doing really great also. So 4 happy, successful children who I think were raised the right way with rules but not craziness, not
right.
ridiculous
You
rigidity.
did a wonderful job.
Yeah, how about you guys?
Yeah, Betty Ann.
Well, I have 2 daughters. They're kind of on a different range of the spectrum as far as, like, one is very creative. She went to art school, but she's also went to makeup artist school, so she's a makeup artist. And the other she's going to be starting pharmacy college in September. She's been going to college forever. I mean, like, she's she's going to be a student forever. She's been in college for 6 years.
Well, pharmacy is very cool. There's a big demand for that.
Yeah, well, that's what she's doing. She's, she's really smart. That's the runner. I call her the runner. But she's just very serious, always been smart, and, she knows what she wants. I laugh because she is an extreme couponer also. And she gets things for free all the time, delivered to the house. And it's just amazing to me. And I say, I see that show on television, Extreme Couponing, and I said, do you think you could? She goes, I could do that, but I don't have time. Like going to the grocery store and come out with $900 worth of groceries and you spend $2, So,
well, that is cool. One of the chapters in our Chicken Soup for the Soul book about multitasking moms is about learning from your kids and how our kids are like version 2.0 of us, right? They're like us, but improved, and how we really can learn so many great things from them. And it sounds like your daughter has a lot to offer.
Yeah, yeah.
Lisa, what about your kids?
I have one that graduated college last year. He majored in international business, and he's working at Automotive Resources International. He just started the job 2 weeks ago. And my second son is graduating from Johns Hopkins Peabody Conservatory in 3 weeks tomorrow, and that's why we're doing our show today, because tomorrow night I'm going to his final concert as an undergrad. He'll be going to graduate school starting in September. And my youngest daughter is going to start going to Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City for college in the fall.
Wow.
So we've got a lot of college stuff going on here still.
We must be good mothers, all 3 of us.
We try, believe me. Me and Betty and we laugh. We're like, oh my God, because all our money goes to our kids. So we're going to be neighbors in a trailer park one day.
Yeah, that's what we're planning. I mean, I just feel like that's what's going to happen. We've devoted all our time, money, and energy to helping our kids.
Oh yeah, I used to feel like I felt like my paycheck during the college years should have just been direct deposited to Georgetown. Because all I did was take it and send it to them anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Amy, it's been before we wrap, I would like you to tell our listeners where they can get Chicken Soup for the Soul, the Multitasking Mom Survival Guide.
It's sold wherever books are sold. So, of course, it's available on Amazon and bn.com, which is Barnes & Noble. Of course, it's available at Barnes & Noble physical stores, lots of independent bookstores. I'm pretty sure Walmart is carrying it. So everywhere, because Chicken Soup for the Soul books really are everywhere. And, of course, we have the e-book available as well. And our e-books are really pretty. They're not plain like a lot of e-books. We managed to take some of the beautiful graphic design inside our print books and carry that over into our e-books. So either way, fun read for Mother's Day. And what's great is for a multitasking mom who doesn't have a lot of big pieces of time, you can read one story at a time, 10 minutes at a time.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for visiting us. We'd love to meet you someday in person. You're so lovely.
Thanks. Thank you very much for having me on the show, and I hope we'll do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
All right.
Good night,
Thanks, Lisa.
Amy. Thanks,
Thanks,
so
Betty
much.
Ann.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
bye.
Well,
She was
that
really
was fun. Very interesting.
Yeah, very
She was
much.
so nice. Well, it's time to say goodnight to everyone, and we'd like to thank you all for joining us at the Chit Chat Cafe, where talk is
Chic. Good night.
Good night.